Hey everyone, welcome back to On Purpose, the #1 health podcast in the world. Thanks to each and every single one of you who come back every week to listen, learn, and grow. I am so deeply grateful for our trusted, committed community that shows up every week. And today's guest is someone that I met a few years ago now. We've been going back and forth trying to make this happen with both of our schedules, with the pandemic, with COVID, with everything else that's been going on. And I have to say that I'm pumped and I'm so excited that we're finally in the same room together. I'm talking about none other than human performance consultant, New York Times bestselling author, self-experimenter, and one of the most wild, crazy, interesting, curious people that I know, Ben Greenfield. Ben, thank you for being here. Thank you for showing up. And even just the few moments we spent together, I'm already looking forward to this.
It's kind of bittersweet though, because like last time we hung out, we were eating wonderful Italian buffet style 5-star resort Sardinian food surrounded by amazing people and music and that whole, what was it, Mind Valley? Was it Mind Valley University? It was Awesomeness Fest. A-Fest. I don't think they even call it Awesomeness Fest anymore because that word's dated. But yeah, they had like, it was almost like a Disneyland in Sardinia, some giant resort. All I remember was the food was amazing. Great parties. And then I met you. We were sitting at a table at dinner, and you and I had never met before. And Vishen Lakhani was there, and he introduced us. And then we thought about doing a podcast, and that was like 2 years ago.
Literally three, I think.
Finally,
now.
The other side of the world, we finally hook up. But yeah, Sardinia. You know what was interesting about that? Like Sardinia is well known as being a longevity hotspot, right? Like Nicoya and Loma Linda and Okinawa. You know, one of these so-called blue zones, even though there's some controversy about the whole blue zones and whether or not the demographic data was accurate or whatever. But either way, like people live a long time there. Like we know that. But when you look at the populations that they studied in Sardinia, it was a lot of the old people up in the Dolomites, right? Who were, hiking up hills with their goat's milk and their wine and eating, small cold water fish and herbs and spices and teas and living this like outdoor lifestyle combined with social relationships and love and all these things that we know now feed a good, not just health span, but lifespan. And then we got to Sardinia. So that was like the picture I had painted in my mind. But then when we got to Sardinia, we weren't like up in the craggy hills with like old Italian people drinking table wine over small, fish and tea up in the mountains somewhere. This was like a full on like 5-star resort with like golf carts and like man-made beaches inside giant walls. And so it was interesting for me. I kept wanting to slip away like up into the Dolomites and be like, okay, well, this is interesting, but what's kind of like the non-touristy side like? Yeah. Regardless though, the food I think was amazing and probably something the longevity enthusiasts up in the mountains would have killed to get their hands on.
Absolutely. I hope we were eating seasonally.
I think we kind of sort of, I think it was seasonally / what the locals there thought would kind of impress
people from us.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I've eaten in Italy before, I guess more like the locals. Yeah. So my wife and I, early on in our marriage, we flew into Rome. And didn't have a lot of money. It was either senior year of college or right after we'd both graduated. And so this was back in the day when I had to like fax all my reservations in and my credit card number to the different places that we wanted to stay and stuff. But our harebrained idea was we wanted to rent bikes in Rome and just like zigzag ride them all the way up to Florence. And that's what we did. We rented bikes, but I planned ahead and mapped out the whole route. And so I would fax my reservations into these agricolas, which are like farm stays where you stay with these Italian families out at their farm, or like little hostels or beds and breakfasts, because that's basically what we had the money to afford. And so we got into Rome, we start riding, and basically because I'd already prepaid for all these reservations by faxing them in, it was come hell or high water, we had to get to where we were going that day. And most days were like 35 to 50 miles of riding, which isn't a whole lot, but these are like heavy touring bikes with panniers on either side, the bags where you keep all of your belongings, your clothing, your toiletries, whatever. And inevitably as the trip goes on and we like buy wine and buy cheese and buy souvenirs, these bikes would get like heavier and heavier as we'd go. every city there is built on top of a hill, like an old medieval village with walls, and you got to climb a hill. So every day at the end of the day, the very last thing we'd do when our legs were already toast was just climb to the top of these hills and then hunt down, wherever we'd actually put in a reservation to stay at. But I remember the most special thing was every single day you'd finish, you were sweaty, you were tired, your legs were aching, and you knew that there was a homemade Italian meal with some table wine that rivals, a $50 glass of wine you'll buy here in the US, and wonderful people and smiles and a bed to stay in. And I just remember every single day riding up those hills thinking, gelato, homemade ravioli, red wine. You got this, Ben. You can do this. And it was a cool trip. We got all the way up to Florence. We put our bikes on a train and then just took the train back down to Rome and flew home. So now I have, years and years later, I have twin 13-year-old sons. And when they're 15, so a year and a half or two from now, we're going to replicate that trip. We're going to take them back. So now I've got them kind of starting to train and learn how to be comfortable on the roads. Like the Italian roads have no shoulders, right? So you got to know how to handle your bike on roads and know how to ride a big fat touring bike instead of a road bike. And so that's going to be really, I'm super looking forward to that. It's like the next trip to Italy is going to be with my boys riding through the Italian fields and hunting down Florence again.
That's a beautiful plan. I love hearing that, man. They're lucky boys. And I remember that as a young man, my parents would drive us to Italy. That was their favorite place in Europe. So we would drive from London, we'd get the ferry into France. And then from France, we would drive again to Italy. So we'd drive to Venice, we'd drive to Naples, we'd drive to Rome. We just drive to a different place and we'd drive across Italy because we didn't have the money to fly there. And my parents preferred doing a road trip. And we didn't get on any bikes or anything like that. But even what you were saying, like,
I was going to say weak family. If you guys were real, you would have taken bicycles.
You would have taken a bike from London
bike from London
to Italy. No, we were like 8 years old, and our parents.
Wow.
But I have good memories of visiting Italy with my parents as well. So I can only imagine how your boys are going to feel when they go with you.
I think they'll do. My only concern is the girls, because I got like two 13-year-old. They'll be 15 by then, like blonde-haired, blue-eyed American boys, and just having taken my wife there and seeing the reaction to, my wife's blonde-haired, blue-eyed, the men there are very, very forward, and they'll catcalling as she walks down the street. And then when I took my sons to Thailand a couple of years ago, same thing. Like all the Thai people just flock around them, and then the women are practically swooning as these little blonde-haired boys walk through the streets. So we may have to bring some fly swatters to keep the women off of them.
I love it, man. I love it. My first memory of you actually was in Sardinia. I knew you were going to be there. We were both speaking at the conference, and I was learning about you and learning about your world. I'm not a biohacker. That's not my background in the same sense as you are, and so I was intrigued, and I loved your sessions that you did. But my first experience of you was we had an evening party, and it was like this. We were on this bridge, if you remember, at the hotel. And you literally jumped in to like the hotel lake / pool. It was, and the reason why I say lake is because it wasn't like a swimming pool. I've got to give Ben credit. It was evening, so it was cooler. And you dived in and you swam. And you got out and you made your, and we were all like, wow, that is the way to enter it. So I always
remember this.
You remember it?
Yeah. And that was early on in the trip. Honestly, dude, I love water.
I know you do.
I'm at home in water. I competed for years in open water swimming and Ironman triathlon, and the biking and the running was okay, but I did, and I still do, just love.
You could see that.
I love the water, I love the ocean, I love spearfishing. I'm not a big water man in terms of like surfing and kiteboarding and things like that, because I don't really have that up in Washington State, so I can't practice it, and I tend not to really be passionate about the things I suck at because I can't practice them. But yeah, I think water is almost like woven into my DNA somehow, because my dad, all of his side comes from Australia, and I'm a big believer in the fact that we do carry a lot of things epigenetically in our DNA, not only trauma, but also the things that our ancestors were good at or loved to do. My son River dreams a lot about snow and ice and Finland and trekking up snowy mountains in the cold. And it's interesting because my wife, Jessa's whole side is like Northern European, up in the area around Finland and Estonia and Switzerland, and some of these more like snowy white places. And it's funny that that's like a repeating dream that he has. And I suspect that it's woven into his DNA in the same way that a love for water is woven into my DNA. And I'm actually super excited because right before I left to come down here to LA, I received a package in the mail. This company called Finis sent me these headphones that you can attach to your goggles, and they're bone conducting headphones, meaning that you can listen to stuff while you're swimming or while you're under the water or while you're spearfishing or whatever. So they conduct the sound through the bones on either side of your head rather than your ears, right? So you don't have to worry about like the wires and everything. And then they sent me these goggles that have like an in-screen display as you're swimming that show you how many strokes you've taken and how far you've gone. So, perhaps it'll just suck all the enjoyment of swimming out of me because sometimes excess technology can do that. But, just water toys like that,
That's
I absolutely
beautiful.
love. And we don't live near water where I live. We live on about 10 acres of isolated forest land up in Washington State, which is great. We have goats and these cute little Nigerian dwarf goats and Icelandic chickens and a bunch of garden beds and all sorts of like old growth forest where there's all sorts of wild plant edibles like, mint and plantain and nettle and white-tailed deer and turkey and coyote. And it's a great place, but there's no water right there. So now I'm building this natural pond. And then just to scratch my swimming itch, I got one of those swim pools that's it's like 20 feet long, but it has a super hard jets.
Yes.
And you attach like it's like an elastic band to your waist, and you can swim against the current.
What are they called? There's a name for those pools.
Mine one's called an aqua fitness. It's the ones you see Michael Phelps advertising in the back of airplane magazines, like that kind of thing. But then I keep mine because I'm a huge fan of like the power of cold thermogenesis and cryotherapy for just for fat loss and your nervous system health and your cellular resilience. I think most people live in the comfort of temperature too much. And when we look at longevity data, when we look at health data, when we look at nervous system and cellular resilience, constant exposure or regular exposure to stresses of heat and stresses of cold is so good for the human body. So I have a sauna, and then I have this pool, but I keep it cold.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is I don't heat it.
Yes.
Right. So in the summer, I'll swim at like 60 degrees or whatever it gets up to. Then in the winter, I'll go out there and swim, and it'll be like almost break through the ice temperatures. But I get in that thing almost every day and swim, and it just puts a big smile on my face.
Yeah, I've been going to this place called Pause in West Hollywood.
Yeah, I know Pause.
So I've been going there every week with my wife.
They have float tanks there too.
Yeah, so we go there every Saturday, and we do the sensory deprivation tanks for about an hour, and then we'll both go and do 3 cycles of the sauna and cold plunge together for another hour.
You feel like $1 million
and
afterwards.
We do it every Saturday morning. It's become our morning routine ritual on Saturday. We wake up, once we've done our meditation, 10 a.m. we head over, and then 10 a.m. to noon we're there. And it's just been, I've heard that for a long time. And as monks, we took cold showers. We were in India, so it was hot plenty of the time. So you always experienced uncomfortable amounts of heat. But doing that since I've been back, where my body has acclimatized to wanting a more comfortable temperature, and the temperature at home is always perfect. But also I've started sleeping at like 66, 67 Fahrenheit. And that, even though it was cooler in the beginning, that kind of sleep temperature has really helped. And you wake up sometimes feeling cold, but I can notice that that's doing some good for my body too.
Sleeping in the cold, the effects of that on the positive effects on sleep architecture have always been surprising to me, because it's such simple, low-hanging fruit. When you look at sleep hygiene, right, we have light as being one component of sleep hygiene. So what I mean by that is your sleep cycle begins in the morning, meaning that the more sunlight, the more of these, like, if you're looking at this from more of a biohacking standpoint, like the infrared light panels that you can use to simulate sunrise in your office that you can shine on your whole body, or an infrared sauna, or these blue light boxes that they sell for desktops that are used for seasonal affective disorders, or of course sunlight being, the top of the totem pole for any of this stuff. like blasting yourself with light in the morning, combined with turning your room into just a light cave at night. Like I've replaced all the cans in our bedroom with red incandescent bulbs instead of LED or modern fluorescent lighting.
So that's for the late evening before you turn off the
So
lights.
my master bedroom, my son's bedroom, and our master bathroom are all red incandescent bulbs. No regular bulbs.
Like whenever you turn on the light.
Yeah, all red. No dimmers, because dimmers, and we're kind of getting into the weeds a little bit here, but dimmer switches on lights, they cause a lot more what is called dirty EMF or a high amount of non-native electricity that doesn't jive well with human cellular function. And so we don't use dimmers, but we just replaced all the cans with red incandescent. The reason for incandescent being that even though they're slightly bigger power hogs on the electrical supply, it's not that big of a deal. It might be an extra $10-15 on your electrical bill every month. So it's nothing too big to worry about. Yeah. But they also they simulate the natural red spectrum of sunlight, and the same as our ancestors might have experienced during torchlight or firelight at night. So all of the bedrooms, anywhere where there would be a sleeping place or a place where you might get up to pee at night, it's all red incandescent. And then all of the computers, like my son's computer, my wife's computer, my computer, we have a program installed on that called Iris, and Iris just kind of sucks all the high temperature light out of the computer screen at a specific time of day. So it's very eye friendly as the night comes in.
And you can have that on your phone as well?
No, but for the phone, so I do Iris on the computer, and then for the television, even though we don't watch much television, I have a box installed on that called a drift box that decreases all the blue light from the television. And then for the phone, obviously a lot of phones have built-in native night mode, but for the iPhone in particular, which is what I use, you can Google iPhone red light trick, and you can actually set your iPhone so it literally just like sucks all of the blue light out of the phone and turns it dark red, kind of like how a lot of people who will do a dopamine fast will switch their phone to black and white for a week, which I think is a great idea. This will switch it to red. And so you combine all those factors along with preferably, and I'll do this a lot of time when I travel because I just don't have as much say over the light bulbs in the hotel room or whatever, wear the blue light blocking glasses, right? At night especially. And so basically you're just blasting yourself with natural and blue light in the morning and then complete absence of that same light at night. You want to get as close to just what would looking at fire look like at night. So light is one, and it's interesting because light can also be used to shift your circadian rhythm backwards or forwards. So let's say we weren't sitting here in LA. Let's say we were in New York, right? And so my wake time in New York being, let's say 6 a.m. would dictate that if I were back home on Pacific time, that's like 3 a.m. And if I'm in New York for a week, when I get back home to Pacific time, my body's all of a sudden waking up at 3 a.m., which is annoying and problematic. And I don't want to get up at 3 a.m. because there's not a whole lot going on. And I'm a total fan. Like I'm an early morning guy. Like I usually get up 4:30 or 5, but 3's pushing the envelope. 3's like you're dead by 11 a.m.
Yeah,
totally. You don't want to talk to people and you need a nap. And so anyways, the trick there is when you're waking up at 3 a.m., if you do wake up and you have to get out of bed and you're going to get up, you're going to maybe go do some yoga or read a book or whatever, you trick your body into thinking it's still nighttime by keeping your phone in night mode, by not turning on any lights in the house, by putting those blue light blocking glasses that most people wear at night on in the morning instead. And when the time rolls around, when you actually want to send a message to your body that this is the new time to wake up, like let's say that's 6 a.m., then you flip on all the lights and you blast the body with light. And after 2 to 3 days of doing that, it's remarkable at how quickly you can shift your circadian rhythm
so you won't be
backwards or forwards using light. And again, kind of like back to the whole biohacking realm, there are even, in addition to those light producing boxes that you can put on top of your desk, they make ones that you can put in your ears. They look like headphones. They're called a human charger, and they blast your head with this blue light in either ear. What? And then there's also a pair of glasses that you can use called
you don't even need to see that light.
Your entire body is a light receptor machine. And that's interesting because you could wear a sleep mask at night, but if your room's really light, like if you don't have blackout curtains or there's lots of blinking things in the room, or you walk into a hotel and you turn off the lights and all of a sudden it looks like a spaceship because the TV and the Wi-Fi and everything, like even if your eyes are covered, all that stuff hits your skin. Wow. So when I say dark in the room, like I make sure it's really super dark. But you were talking about temperature too. Obviously temperature that's like the second component of sleep hygiene. So with temperature, I think you said you're doing what, like 65, 66?
Yeah, around that too.
I find, because I coach some people still for their health and for their sleep and everything. So I get to look at a lot of data from an Oura Ring or from a Whoop or whatever wearable somebody is using. And I've identified that about 63 to 65 Fahrenheit is even better. Like if you get
so even a bit lower.
Yeah, my metric is if you're one of those people who, and I think this is a good idea for staying cold, who likes to take off all their clothes before they get into bed at night or sleep in your underwear. Mm-hmm. If you have mild cognitive resistance to taking off your clothes at night before you get into bed because it's a little chilly, that's a pretty good sleep temp, right? So for me, it's like if it's a little chilly when I take my clothes off, that's perfect. And then in addition to that, I actually have this pad underneath the top sheet of my bed. It's called a chili pad, and it circulates like 55-degree cold water under my body while I'm sleeping. My wife doesn't do most of the stuff that I do.
So you just have on your half?
Yeah, the shoemaker's wife wears no shoes, dude. So I just don't bug her about it. I let her do her thing. She likes to garden and hang out with the goats and chickens and go on walks, and so she just does her thing. And I don't force anything on her because I know what'll happen down the line. If I want to give my wife health advice, I'll tell one of my friends who's a doctor. I'll be like, text this to Jessa, and then they text it to her because I just know. She's
gonna know now when she watches this.
No, because that's the thing is she also doesn't.
She's not gonna watch this.
She wouldn't even know how to download a podcast. So that's just who she is. Right. So anyways, though, so I have the chili pad on my side, and I can and my sons both have one too, and they love it. We all like. So we have these big, glorious family dinners at night. And like right before dinner, all of us boys run upstairs and turn on our chili pads so we can sleep better. So the bed's already cold when we get into it. Another thing that you can do, and it's a little bit paradoxical, but it actually works, is you can pull on wool socks before you go to bed at night. And when your feet are warm, there's these little vessels are called anastomosis or something like that. But it actually allows the rest of your body to stay cool when you warm some of those tiny vessels in the hands and the leg. So you'd think wearing wool socks to bed would keep you warm, but just like wear wool socks and little else, and you can actually cool the body with that method too. And then finally regarding cold, you don't mind me just geeking out on all
No, this is beautiful. I love this.
Like I'm just going
no,
on,
we dived into sleep. Sleep's going to be...
Everybody needs to sleep.
Everyone's going to try this out. Yeah, because I mean, sleep's something that everyone's struggling with.
Oh yeah,
so I'm very happy with it.
It's so critical.
Please geek out.
So the thing with the cold is that if you do kind of like break the rules, because there's all these rules now that all the scientists in their institutions have come up with that are annoying us, like you're not supposed to work out hard within 3 hours of bedtime, and you're not supposed to eat a heavy meal within 3 hours prior to bedtime, which for me can be socially problematic because I love to have big, glorious family dinners with people and go out on the town and visit new restaurants. And I mean, how often, let's say you're going to bed at 10, how often are you really going to be done with all that? Like 7, unless you're just like a total, I don't know, just a boring social outcast. Sorry to all the people who aren't eating dinner, but basically it's not that hard. You just get the body's core temp back down. So if it's the winter and I finish at dinner, I'll go for a brisk walk outside in the cold weather. And if it is the summer or warmer season, just like a lukewarm or a cold shower before you go to bed. Like my sons and I just went down and watched the fights down in Vegas when it was like 115 degrees on the strip, and we'd walk every night. We'd walk home from the fights and the shows and everywhere we went. And every night before I get into bed, there's a little bit of resistance to this, but that's okay. You can overcome the resistance, but just take a cold shower before you get into bed. And that helps to lower the core temp if you have had to exercise or you've had a heavy meal in those 3 hours prior to bedtime. Mm-hmm. So you've got the light and you've got the cold, both the ambient temperature and then your sleep surface and then your body itself that you keep cold. The other two that you want to think about for sleep, in addition to light and cold, the first is noise. And in the city, this is a bigger issue. But I mean, even I've got roosters that like to get up kind of early because they're naturally programmed to wake you up. And I've got, I live out in the forest, but there's a road nearby that sometimes semis go down, and I can hear off in the distance the braking, like the, when semis go downhill. So I wear earplugs, like just soft wax earplugs to bed. But then they've actually done studies on the different forms of ambient noise that help you to sleep at night. You know, they make like sleep machines that will make white noise and brown noise. And one of the forms of noise that they make is pink noise. And pink noise, it appears, is the best background noise to have playing in the background.
What is pink? I've never even heard of that.
It's just like I don't know why they give colors to certain noises, but it's the frequency and the pitch of that noise. So I've got an app on my phone called Sleep Stream. I think it was free, or the cost was incidental, but it's got all these different like sleep tracks on it, and I don't use anything on it except the pink noise function. So my phone goes in airplane mode next to my bed, and then I push pink noise on, and I put the earplugs in, and then I'm covering up all those ambient sounds. That technique works a lot better when I'm traveling, when I'm staying in a hotel near busy roads, when I have a roommate or something like that. If I'm at a conference and I'm sharing a room with somebody and they're getting up early or they're going to bed late. So the sound is another component, especially if you're a light sleeper. And then the final component is safety. And a lot of people don't think about the safety component. So your bed should be a place where from a nervous system standpoint, you're not wired up in work mode. Your sympathetic nervous system is not activated. If anything, the bed is almost like an anchor that activates the parasympathetic nervous system. Well, if you are one of those people who has business books on your nightstand, or maybe you open your laptop up at night, or really at any other time during the day, that would give your body the impression that the bedroom or the bed particularly is an appropriate place to work. I would say even that television, just because psychologically, we as humans are still hardwired to see that television, and it's as though a whole bunch of other people and other experiences are in your bedroom. Not to mention the fact that there's some really interesting data that television can replace dreaming, right? So essentially, we live now in an era for the past several decades where all of the colors and imagery and imagination and visualization and creativity that your brain should be churning out during sleep at night to process memories and to process trauma and to process creativity, a lot of that can be replaced by staring at a television before you go to bed at night. So I don't have a TV in the bedroom for those reasons, and also for the light reasons, and also for the reason that I want my body to associate the bed with pretty much nothing but sleep and sex, and then I'll keep a boring book or a work of fiction next to the bedside. Now, I used to, when I'd get to a hotel room, I would just plop on, especially a small hotel room, like a suite, usually you've got more than enough room, but the small hotel rooms, a little crappy workstation in the corner or whatever, if that, I'd just plop on my stomach on the bed and open up my laptop. I think a lot of people know what I'm talking about. And, just lay there on your belly and work on the laptop because it's a comfortable spot to do that. And the problem is that sends your body this cognitive signal that the bed is the place where you work. So now I always make sure my laptop, even in a single room hotel room, is not in the bed. And that sends the body a message that the bed is a safe place, not a workplace, not a stressful place, not an emails jumping out from your computer place. And if you really want to take that safety thing one step further, this has become quite popular now, this idea of gravity blankets, meaning folks will sell like these 10, 15, 20, or 25-pound gravity blankets. And it sounds like it would be totally paradoxical to what I was saying about staying cool, because it sounds heavy. But a lot of folks are doing a good job making like a gravity blanket that will stay cool. That one company I was talking about, Chili Pad, they even sell a gravity blanket that will circulate cold water through the blanket. But there's something about, very similar to how when you were swaddled as a baby, you felt protected and you felt like you were in this quiet cave. It's that feeling when you pull on the gravity blanket. And so when you combine all that stuff, the light, the cold, management of sound, and then presence of safety in the bedroom, you create a real nice nest for getting those hours that are arguably the only hours during your life, arguably that third of your life that your nervous system should be repairing, that your body should not be wired up to have everything activated, that you shouldn't be exposed to lots of electrical signals. And I'm not one of those guys who's go full on, move up to the mountains, don't use internet, cut yourself off from everything. But it appears that the issue with constant exposure to all these electrical signals that our bodies, from an ancestral standpoint, haven't been exposed to for thousands of years, is the fact that the cells don't get a break, right? So when we're looking at Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and the constant opening of what are called calcium channels in the cell that allow a whole bunch of ions to spill into the cell that disrupt metabolism or that give you brain fog later on in the day, that's actually all pretty repairable. The body's actually pretty impressive and magical in terms of how quickly it can bounce back from certain things, just in the same way that it could recover from a hard exercise session and remove all those muscle fibers or repair all those muscle fibers if you give it rest, if you give it recovery. The thing is, it's the same thing with electrical exposure. Like if you can turn your bedroom into a safe, quiet, cool place that also doesn't have a whole bunch of plugged in, like Wi-Fi routers and phones, et cetera, you're all of a sudden giving your cells a chance to just go, it's like when people camp, and they're just cut off from all that stuff. They feel great when they come back. So it's not as though you have to live like a Luddite. It's that sometimes you have to press the pause button, give your body a chance to step away from all that electricity for just, those 7 or 8 hours or however long you're in there, and then emerge back out repaired and ready to tackle the day again.
Yeah, that's you just told everyone how to make their bedroom into a sanctuary. That was
a sanctuary.
Yeah,
yes,
that's what it sounded like. The way you were describing it, I was just like, and that's what it has to be. A sanctuary is safe. A sanctuary is the right
it has to
light.
be. And I think a lot of people beat themselves up too, because there's a lot of really great sleep researchers out there now.
Yeah.
You've got guys like Matthew Walker and Nick Littlehales and gosh, who else? There's another person who's been doing a lot of work on sleep. Michael Bruce is another guy. But over and over again, what you see is you're supposed to sleep 7 to 9 hours a night. And a lot of people feel bad because they don't. They don't get that. And I felt bad for the longest time because I didn't. And I'm like, what am I going to die of cancer early? Or am I going to, is my body going to fall apart? Am I going to accelerate aging? Because I've got too much going on, or my body just my eyes open wide at 4:30 and I just want to go crush the day, right? Which I think many people who are dialed into perhaps some of the things that you talk about, like your ikigai, your life's purpose, your plan de vida, speaking of Sardinia, this idea of your purpose for life. Well, if you have a really strong purpose for life, sometimes you wake up in the morning and you're just like, baby. Let's go, bring it on. And for me, with our big glorious family dinners, and I read my son's stories at night, and I play the music on the guitar, and I'll make love to my wife and read some fiction. So, even with all that, I can usually do a pretty good job being close to asleep by 10. Yeah. But getting up at 4:30, that's 6 to 6.5 hours. So the thing is that if you do that, but also you take a nap, like a post-lunch siesta, for example, the siesta, even if it's 20 to 45 minutes long, can simulate what you get out of a full 90-minute-ish sleep cycle. So the way that I live my life is I sleep 6 to 6.5 hours a night, and then like clockwork, after lunch every day, or if I have a meeting after lunch, sometimes it's slightly later in the afternoon. I try not to push it too close to bedtime because you want some sleep drive going into the night. I take a nap. I take a siesta. For me, it's 20 to 45 minutes. Wow. I do this is where some of the biohacking comes in. I'm like, okay, I got 20 to 45 minutes. I want to make this effective. Yeah. So what I do is, I have something similar to like that sensory deprivation float tank that you use down at Pause.
Yeah.
I actually had a float tank for a while, but it was too much upkeep for me.
I can imagine.
I got rid of it.
The magnesium.
It's just like my whole basement looked like a freaking pool house. So I have what's called a hyperbaric chamber, which is like this chamber that they use in hospitals for repairing wounds, and they'll use it for like cardiovascular problems and increasing red blood cells. And it pressurizes you at about what's called 1.4 atmosphere. So it's like you're 23, 25 feet under the ocean, you with the pressure, but then you're breathing pure oxygen. And so the combination of the pure oxygen plus the pressure drives that oxygen into the tissue, accelerates repair, clears the brain. I mean, even if you weren't napping in it, you feel amazing when you get out. And so I climb in that, and I like it too because I have to zip myself up, and it's kind of like nobody can get to me. It even takes like 3 minutes to decompress me. So if the house caught on fire, I'd be kind of screwed. But I climb into that. So I'm just like, I'm locked off from the world, right? And then I have a couple of technologies that I use. One is called a HAP-B.
Oh yeah,
it's like, have you seen this? It's super cool. I've been messing around with it for like 5 months now. It uses a magnetic signal that simulates the same molecular signal of a few choice compounds. Like for simulating wakefulness, you could choose like the caffeine setting, the nicotine setting. It's got like an alcohol setting.
What's it doing?
So basically all it does is it causes your cells to respond as though that particular molecule were attached to the cell receptor without you actually ingesting a compound or taking a supplement or consuming something that's going to stay in your system for a long period of time. So let's say I want a wakey prior to going out to a dinner party. I could put it in coffee mode, right? Put that around my neck or on my head, get that hit, wakefulness producing hit of caffeine. But then when I take it off, it's not like the caffeine's still floating around in my system. Same thing with a nap. So what I like,
it's in your system only for as long as you have.
Right. It's just, it's as though I were blasting you with the electrical signal of coffee without you actually having to drink the coffee, which has a half-life of, whatever, 6 or 8 or 10 hours, depending on how you're genetically wired up. So it's really cool. And I didn't really believe, I'll interview a lot of people on my podcast. I'm like, that's a little woo. But then I tried it and it actually works surprisingly well. So I put it in my preferred mode for nap is the one that's it's called relax, but it mimics CBD,
right?
Which is nice for me.